Sometimes I can still smell the grease. Not the filthy animal stink of the Eastern Front, composed of unwashed bodies and rotting horseflesh, but the sharp, clean scent of industrial lubricant from the floor of the Krupp works in Essen. In my dreams, I am not holding a rifle or a satchel charge. I am holding a caliper. I am measuring tolerances to the hundredth of a millimeter. There is a rhythm to the factory, a heartbeat of steam hammers and the hydraulic hiss of presses that makes sense. It is a world where cause leads directly to effect. If you pull the lever, the piston descends. If you oil the gear, it spins without complaint. It was a life of beautiful, cold logic. But memory is a liar, especially now that my hands shake too much to hold a pen steady. Maybe the factory wasn't that clean. Maybe I just scrubbed the grime off the memory to separate it from the mud of Rzhev. God, that mud, it wasn't just dirt and water. It was a living thing, a gluttonous creature that swallowed boots, wheels, and men with equal indifference. I sat in the bottom of a slit trench that we had carved out of the frozen Russian steppe, scraping the slime off the hinge of my wire cutters. It was a pointless task. The dampness here was pervasive. It rusted metal in your pocket and rotted the socks inside your boots. Yet I cleaned the tool. I took a rag stiff with dried oil and worked it into the joint, feeling the mechanism loosen, catch, and then smooth out. It was the only thing in this godforsaken salient I could control. The earth walls of the trench loomed above my head, gray and weeping with groundwater. They were the source of my terror. The other men, the infantry boys with their hollow eyes, they feared the bullets or the shrapnel. They feared the pain. I feared the weight. I looked at that wet soil and I didn't see cover. I saw a tomb waiting to collapse. Every time a distant artillery shell thumped against the horizon, the ground shivered, and I felt the trench walls inch closer, whispering about suffocation. To be buried alive, to have that wet. Heavy darkness pressed the air from your lungs while your arms are pinned to your sides. That was the nightmare. In the factory, if a machine failed, you hit the emergency stop. There was no emergency stop here, just the waiting. I checked the spring on the cutters again. Perfect tension, a small victory in a losing war. Richter, the voice didn't startle me, though it should have. It was Sergeant Baumann. He was a slab of a man, carved from the same granite as the monuments back home, but the winter had chiseled cracks in him. He slid down into the mud beside me, his coat heavy with the accumulated filth of the salient. He didn't look at me. He looked at the wire cutters in my hand. Stop polishing your jewelry, Klaus. We have a job. I didn't look up immediately. I wiped a speck of rust from the handle. The mechanism jams if the mud dries in the pivot. Sergeant, a jammed tool is no use to the Reich, and a dead sapper is no use to the company, Baumann grunted, shifting his weight. The sucking sound of the mud releasing his boot was obscene. Headquarters wants the bridge at Sector 4 prepped. The Ivans are pushing armor through the marsh. If they break the line, they'll need that crossing. I finally looked at him. The bridge, it was an iron truss structure, old and rusted, spanning a ravine that was less a river and more a slurry of ice and sludge. To rig it meant leaving the trench. It meant walking out into the open, under the gray, indifferent sky where the Sturmovix prowled like hawks. It's daylight, I said, the protest rising in my throat, not as insubordination, but as a statement of technical fact. We can't lay charges in daylight. The wiring alone takes an hour if we want redundancy. Doing it under observation is inefficient. It invites error. Inefficient, Baumann repeated, a dry, humorless exhale escaping his lips. You talk like you're still on the assembly line. This isn't about efficiency, Richter. It's about desperation. The line is bending. If we don't rig that bridge now, we won't have time to blow it when the tanks come. You take the detonators. Weber carries the charges. We move in 5. I opened my mouth to argue, to explain the probability of a sniper spotting us, the physics of high explosives exposed to stray rounds. But the air above us suddenly split. There was no sound of the shot, only the violent crack of the air parting inches above the trench line, followed instantly by the wet thud of the bullet burying itself in the parapet behind us. Dirt and ice sprayed into my face, stinging my eyes. I flinched, curling inward, my hands instinctively covering my head, not to protect myself from the bullet, but to shield myself from the earth I was sure was about to cave in on us. Bauman didn't even blink. He just stared at the fresh hole in the mud wall, steam rising from it. That one was close, the sergeant said, his voice flat. He clapped a heavy hand on my shoulder, the impact driving me down slightly into the mire. Got your kit, Klaus. The war isn't waiting for the night shift. He turned and slogged away, rounding the traverse of the trench. I sat there for a moment, the taste of soil in my mouth. I looked at my wire cutters. They were clean. They were ready. I was not. I closed my eyes, picturing the layout of the bridge, the stress points, the girders, the places where a charge would shear steel like paper. I forced my mind into the schematic, locking away the fear of the crushing earth behind a wall of blueprints and calculations. I stood up, holstered the tool, and checked my pouches. The factory was gone. There was only the mud and the job. Main support truss, vertical load. Cross-bracing tension. If we blow the southern abutment, the torque will twist the deck off the northern pier. Thump that young man in the mud. He died there too. I know this because I look in the mirror now, and I see a stranger. My hands are old now. The skin is like parchment, spotted and thin. They shake when I hold a coffee cup, a tremor that the doctors say is age, but I know is the vibration of a bridge that collapsed 80 years ago. I sit in my garden in Essen. The factories are gone, replaced by parks and shopping centers. The air is clean, but I can still smell the wet iron. People talk of heroes. They write books, they make films with swelling music. They want the soldier to be a knight, a guardian, but there are no heroes in the mud. There are only choices, not between right and wrong, not between good and evil. Those are fairy tales for children who have never smelled a gangrenous wound. The choices are between the impossible and the unthinkable. You save who you can, and you carry the rest with you. All of them. Bauman is with me when I wake up. He is with me when I eat. He is with me when I watch my grandchildren play. He is the weight in my chest that never lightens. I was a builder once. I made things. I understood how parts fit together to make a whole. But war is the anti-creation. It takes the complex, beautiful machine of a human life and dismantles it, bolt by bolt, until there is nothing left but scrap. I survived because I was a good mechanic. I knew how to complete the circuit. I knew that the bridge mattered more than the man. That is the logic of the factory. That is the logic of the war. And it is a lie. The bridge was just steel. Bauman was a universe. I traded a universe for a delay. The harvest of my life is ruined. The fields are salted. I look at the world we built on the ashes of those choices, and I wonder if the foundation is strong enough. This memory is a shard of glass I carry. Help me pull it out. Subscribe to keep this history alive.